Welcome to the JFP stock review and analysis here on Invest. So what we're going to do today is look at JFP, the company. JFP, formerly known as Jamaica Fibreglass Products Limited. So they would have launched their IPO. Well, they listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange Junior Market March 11, 2022. So they haven't been listed a full year yet. But we have at least 3 quarters of financials to go through. So we're going to go through that. We're going to start with an overview of the company. We're going to help you to understand what they do, how they make money. We're going to look at their 9 months financials for 2022. We're going to look at their dividends. Have they paid any? What's their track record there, etc. Then any news that may be there about them that we think is notable upcoming. And finally, before I forget, we're also going to be looking at price history, and that's going to be using the Moneyline platform. JMMB is our sponsor for this episode. So let's just get started.
Learning is the key to successful investing. And who doesn't want to invest in some way?
Here at L.E.A.R.N Grow Invest, we focus on financial education, all with the aim of sharing our knowledge on personal finance, investing, and building wealth. We do this on the foundation of our faith in God.
If a more holistic approach is what you need, check out our Grow Faith-based financial coaching program.
Find out more about us at learngrowinvestclub.com
and follow us on all social media platforms at L.E.A.R.N Grow Invest.
So before I get started, I have to say that anything that I share here is for discussion, education, entertainment, and illustrative purposes only, and should not be construed as professional financial advice, solicitation, or recommendation to buy or sell JFP or any other securities. This is just for your education. So as I mentioned before, we're going to go through just 5 key areas of the company. This is how we do our stock reviews. It's actually tailored to give you a very quick understanding of the company in about 30 to 45 minutes. So we're gonna start with the overview and tell you a little bit about the company. So let's look at that. So JFP would have released their prospectus on February 11th, 2022. They issued a total of 280 million. Well, they made 280 million shares available. So 140 million were newly issued. Another 140 million was from an existing shareholder at the time. Both went for $1, and the use of proceeds was to increase working capital and to enable them to take advantage of the opportunities that they would have seen in the market. So they listed in March, and they've been trading on the stock exchange junior market since then. In terms of JFP, the company, they would have started with a couple of employees. It says on their website under Mango Tree, and now they have a 75,000 square foot facility employing approximately 75 employees. It could actually be more right now based on their recent expansion. So JFP at the time was primarily known as a fiberglass furniture manufacturing company, but over the years they would have transitioned into woodwork, metalwork, upholstery, surface, and acrylic. The 6 forms of manufacturing, when combined, produces interior decor packages for commercial entities, and it allows them to provide unique services and settings. And some of this would be like retrofitting buses for the National Housing Trust, Ministry of Health and Wellness, Human Employment and Resource Training, otherwise known as HEART, Child Development Agency, and so on, right? So it says here that they pride themselves on creating and maintaining a positive work environment for their employees while keeping a keen interest in its environs and surrounding communities. There's a lot more about them on their website. I'll share the link in the description. Well, it should actually be there already. So check that out to learn more about the company. I do have some more information regarding this though. So they wanted to have what they have on their website, 3 main areas, so design, manufacture, and installation and delivery. So depending on what your needs are, they may be able to help you based on some of these key areas. We have here the CEO, Metri Siaga, who hopefully we'll be able to get an interview with soon. We have reached out to them, and it's pending confirmation at the point of this video. in terms of the countries that they operate in, they do export to the Caribbean and Latin America. We see some of those countries here. In terms of types of products, further to what I mentioned before, if you think about, cafes like Starbucks, restaurants. So when a restaurant is being built, JFP would come in and pretty much design the whole restaurant for them. So they would provide everything from the tables, the chairs, the garbage bins, the counters, the dividing walls that you may see there. If you have an office space, they can provide the furniture there. If you have a hotel, they would have done some hotels as well. So they would provide all of those, sort of like fixtures that you would need for your business. These are some of their clients listed here. Now, depending on, I guess, the type of client, they may have either a contract with them or some agreement with them to, let's say that the company is about to open another location. They would like to reach out to JFP, say they have this location that they're planning. JFP would come in, do what they're doing, work with them in a projectized form, and then, payments would be arranged with that client, I guess, depending on, milestones in that project. Some of this was shared in their prospectus. We actually did an IPO review earlier, last year, February. So you can check out that video as well. But that's just how they work with clients, how they make money, etc. This is their top 10 shareholding as at September 30th, 2022. This is probably different by now, but this is the last record that we have. So it's good to understand how many shares are outstanding for the company. So this top 10 represents about 84% of the shares. So 16% of the shares fall outside of the top 10, something worth noting. So 940 million shares of the 1.1 billion shares available rests with the top 10. But I do see where there were some sale of shares happening. So we'll talk about that a little later. So that's it for the overview of the company. Let's look a little bit at the financials now. So what I'm doing here before I get into the financials, we're going to be looking at 3 statements. That's the income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. We're going to talk about a very high level overview of the statement. This is not really the setting to go in depth. It's targeted to help you have a good understanding of the company at a high level. So what I have here are some things that I'll be looking at. We'll be comparing quarters. As I said, we have the 9 months financials that we'll be going through. They do have a 3rd quarter comparison as well. So we'll look at that briefly. For the income statement, we want to see our revenues growing or shrinking. We want to see if margins are improving. And, we could learn more about this through applying certain ratios. But for simplicity, we're just going to be looking at, is that number growing or getting smaller? We're also going to be looking at costs. Are they increasing or decreasing? Now, normally when revenues grow, we expect expenses to increase as well. But we want to watch to see how they are in comparison to previous quarters. And earnings per share, very important to look at. Is it positive or negative? And is it growing in relation to previous periods? So these are just some of the things that we're looking at when we go through the income statement. And then we'll be able to see whether or not what we look at, how it measures to these things. So this is their statement for the period ending September 30th. So what you see here is the 9 months ending September 2022. And we see that in comparison to September 2021. So I have some things that are highlighted here for easy focus. So we're going to look at revenue, gross profit, operating profit, and net profit. Those are the key things that we're looking at. In red, we have the expenses that we've kind of highlighted here. These are just admin and selling and distribution expenses. And then we're going to look at just the total revenue for their entire 2021, see how that compares to 2022. All right, that's just to give you an overview of what we're looking at. And then down to the bottom left, you have the EPS for the 9 months ending September 2022, right? If you have any questions, just let me know. But I thought that'd be easy to explain it so that you're not looking all over the place, right? So we see where revenues actually are at 328 million, and that's over at this point looks like to be maybe about 40% their entire revenue for 2021, right? So that's good to see in comparison to 9 months 2021, 209 million versus 328. So that's over 50% growth in terms of their revenue. So that's good to see. Gross profit for the 9 months would be 212 million. Expenses, we see where their 9 months expenses would be the same as their expenses for the entire 2021, where it's 157 million versus 155. Now, as we mentioned, as revenue grows, these expenses are likely to grow as well. There is some commentary on it in their notes, so we'll get to that a little bit. They do mention that admin expenses would have increased as they sought to take on more projects, etc. So it means that they're adding, so they would have a mix of contractors and full-time staff. So I guess depending on the projects, they might have persons who come on for a period or persons who may be hired full-time for that tenure. But I did remember looking at an interview where I believe during the pandemic, they might have done some scaling down. I'm not fully sure. It was an interview done on taking stock. So, feel free to search for that. But there was some commentary from the CEO about their hiring practice, etc. But just understand that based on the type of work that they do, their resource team may not be a fixed number. They may take on more employees, they may release some depending on certain things, or they may just be growing their capacity overall depending on the contracts and the projects that they have, right? Next, we see operating profit at 54 million for the 9 months. The entire 2021 was 25 million, so there's more than 100% growth for the 9 months compared to the entire 2021. And we see operating profit before tax. Now, because they are a junior market company, they do have a tax break of 100% for the first 5 years. So that taxation number will now be zero. So they'll be able to realize more profit. So we see net profit of 43 million for the 9 months and a total of 8 million profit for all of 2021. So that would be 500% growth in profitability for them for 9 months, right? So that's definitely good to see. And their EPS for the 9 months would have been 4 cents. All right. Again, let me know if you have any questions, but that's, based on what we're seeing for the income statement here, good sign. They seem to, they've already beaten the number for last year, so they are going to have, a record year. And so there are lots of, good things coming out of that report. Next, in terms of the balance sheet, again, we're going to be comparing, quarters and year to date. We are going to key in on cash. Are they, building their cash position? We're going to look at debt and liabilities. How is that being shown as well? Retained earnings, always important to look at, especially for companies that intend to pay dividends, which they did mention their dividend policy in their prospectus. So we'll talk about that later. And then, as usual, we look at receivables, inventory, payables, etc. Those are things that helps us to understand the cash position and the financial position of the company. So in terms of their balance sheet, we're seeing for the 9 months ended, no balance sheet. It is always as at a certain date, just like all the statements. So bear in mind that these things might have changed or will change when their end of year comes out. So we see, property, plant, and equipment at 45 million. We see, inventories would have been, significantly increased here. We see that's 117 million. Now that could mean that, they're storing up inventory for projects that are going to be completed, So that's actually a good sign, because that means that they are expecting to be, you know, selling those inventories to realize revenue. So that's good to see. Receivables, however, has grown close to 5 times. You know, based on the type of business, again, they would have been paid by, you know, a projectized way. So this is something that, you know, unless you see maybe some expected credit loss or anything like that, or a note on receivables being at risk, that's just something that will come with this type of company. In terms of cash and cash equivalents, is 27 million cash for the 9 months. That is more than double what they would have had for 2021. But personally, I'd like to see the company have just a little bit more cash, based on the fact that they have such high receivables. So cash is something that you definitely want to look at over time. But for purposes of what we're going through, their cash position is increasing, so that's a good thing. Right of use assets we see here at 139 million. Would have to look to see, you know, in the statements what specifically these would be, and they do have investments here of 50 million, so that could be, you know, something that they may choose to convert to cash at some point if they need to. In terms of their liabilities, we see payables being 183 million. Again, it could be that credit terms are worked out with suppliers and are maybe paid based on certain milestones, but that's something to watch as well. So that has grown from 103 million at the end of 2021. We see where, let's see what else we want to look at here. We mentioned retained earnings. So retained earnings stand at 99 million, up from 56. We see where long-term loans were actually cleared here. I believe that would have been, was that a part of their prospectus? I don't remember at this moment, but there are no long-term loans. There is lease liability. That's 131 million. And so that's what their balance sheet looks like as at this point. Next, we move on to the cash flow statement. Cash flow, we're doing more of the same. We're looking at how things have been trending from previous quarter. Is the company generating or burning through cash? Do they, you know, need to either take out debt or do some sort of financing to bring money into the business? You know, we're going to look at the 3 key numbers: cash flow from operations, from financing, and from investing activities. You know, we're going to try to answer the question of how the company is financing itself. And then, of course, if we see any debts, anything appearing on the statement that we didn't see previously, we'll, you know, talk about that, right? So this is your cash flow for the 9 months ended 2022, September 2022. So we see net profit coming there, so that would have been, you know, good to see. Interest expense would be 11 million. That would just slightly up from the 9 million there. Inventory, so things like inventory, of course, we have to look at here. So 71 million here for inventory, receivables being 116. And let's see what else here. Payables would have, of course, helped in terms of cash flow from operating activities, but overall, you know, negative operating cash flow for the 9 months here, negative 71 million here. And I mean, again, that's I wouldn't necessarily say expected, but again, based on what we saw in terms of the inventory number increasing, receivables increasing, we're not really surprised by that number there. But of course, we will look at where it stands in terms of being compared to the end of year. Let's move on to the next one. So cash flow from investing activities. So purchase of property, plant, and equipment, just under 2 million there. And the only other thing worth mentioning here is the 11 million investment. So nothing too detailed here to go through. Then, of course, we have cash flow from financing activities. They have yet to pay a dividend since they've listed. We'll talk about that a little later, but interest would have been paid out. Share capital based on the IPO, and finance lease of 6.7 million. So overall, their cash position increased. We saw that in the balance sheet already. But as I said, I think for me, personally, I'd like to see some more cash there. But it's something that I'm assuming they'll focus on building over time. Now, there is, again, just based on the nature of the business, it's something where they may not keep an enormous amount of cash, because I figure they'll be focusing on their projects and so on. But the more cash this company keeps, I think would be better off for them, especially since they have a business that is that has to spend so much on inventory. So if projects are delayed, if things don't work out as they expect, it could really impact their ability to pay their current expenses, things of that nature. All right, so hopefully that was helpful for you. Next, we have price history. And again, because this is sponsored by JMB Moneyline, we're going to go to the Moneyline platform. So I'm going to show you just a summary here, then I'll just go on the platform. So this was taken from the JMB Moneyline platform. Thanks to them again for being sponsor. So it ended the day today at 180. So high of 181, low of 174. And as you see, it's been kind of moving up a little bit, but we'll get to the chart soon. I'll just look at, the highlights week to date, etc. So from the, it's been just slightly up since the year has started. It was trading as high as $2 since listing, and as low as at $1.06. Volume as much as 25 million units, and we'll see the trading in shares notice soon, where that would have been commented on. Spoke about the shares outstanding already, and the market cap is what we're seeing there. This would be the last trades for today, or the trades for today. So let me go to the Moneyline platform, because it's probably going to be a little hard to see. I want to be able to zoom in. So all right, so I'm going to zoom in here. If you don't know how to access the stock prices, you go to other service, stock market summary, and then you simply just type in the name of the company. So it's good to know the ticker. In this case, we're looking for JFP. Comes up in the listing, we click on it, and then you'll see the same information that I was showing just now. All right, so you can filter based on a specific period. Normally, I'm looking at maybe the last 90 days, unless I want to get a high level of where the company might have been, before that. But this would be the last 3 months here. So we're seeing it would have gone as low as 141 in the last 3 months, and has been as high as 193 just about a week ago, right? So based on where it is now, it seems to, it may be, so there is a report due soon. So usually when a report is due, I'm looking to see, our volumes increasing, is the price inching up slowly. It may mean, interest or anticipation in the upcoming report. So just something to look out for as well. Volume would have traded 3 million units on this day. We're traded for 193. And so we're seeing the queue here now as well. So we have 30 orders, orders as much as 300,000 units. That would be about the highest ones that we're seeing. Sell side, we see 62 orders, and I'm looking, usually I just look for any large volume. So we're seeing 400,000, so that's what we're seeing on the sell side there. So of course, it just depends on, how the next, few days go based on when the report is coming out. It would be interesting to see how things progress for this company. Trades that took place today, one of the things I like about Moneyline is the ability to see these trades and the time the trades took place. So for example, if the stock halts, you'll be able to see the exact time it halts, so you'll know when it will be released. And so these are the trades that took place today. So yep, that's it. Let me go back to my slides here. All right, so let's talk about dividends for a little bit. So there was a notice on the 3rd of November saying that the board of directors has deferred the dividend consideration to the first board meeting of 2023. So we're gonna stay tuned for that. But their dividend announcement, well, their dividend mandate in the prospectus stated that the company, if admitted to the junior market, intend to pursue an annual dividend of between 40 to 80% of net profits available for distribution. So what you need to do is look at, so we saw the 9 months net profit of 43 million. So let's say that you imagine that they would close the year at, if they were to close the year at that figure right now, let me actually do some quick math here. So if they were to close the year, let's say that they close the year at 43 million, right? So 40% of that would be 17 million. So let's just go midway, right? So 43 million, let's multiply by 60%. That's 25 million. And then we divide by the number of shares outstanding, right? That will give us about a 2-cent per share dividend, right? So that's just the estimated dividend now based on 60% payout of their current net profits, all right? It is a junior market company. Usually, we want to say junior market companies investing in the growth of the business and not necessarily paying a dividend. But there are some investors who invest solely for dividends. So there are persons who would just be happy to see any dividend at all, especially if they're investing for the long term. So there's something to note there. In terms of any news on the company, unfortunately, there's not a lot of information out there for them. Of course, for me, I love when companies over communicate, especially in the first year. So I would love to see more from the company. These are the notices that we saw on the JSE. So we see here, starting from, let's go back to these are all on the same day. So we see that one of the directors sold 25 million units and another purchased. So that would be pretty much an exchange there, I imagine. Then we see a director sold 1.2 million shares and another purchased 1.2. We see a director sold and a connected party purchased. Then we see a director sold and a connected party purchased, right? So that pretty much means these seem to have all been connected in terms of these trades that can be found on the JSE's website. 2 news articles that came out from July of last year. So again, I would just love to see more in terms of being reported about the company, especially based on the type of business. So it says here they would have expanded their distribution to the Caribbean. And the next one says here that they would have secured their first US account. So I remember when that notice came out, it's definitely a good look for the company for them to be able to be expanding in that way. And so, it's for us to see, how that progresses in terms of impact on revenue and of course, how investors would respond to that. So that is the official review. So I'm just going to talk about now just, some of my thoughts on the company. Again, I just want to thank, JMMB for sponsoring this video and allowing us to use the Moneyline platform to go through the price history. So in terms of, the company, a lot to like about the company. There was, I guess the only concern about the company would just be, consistency of revenues based on the projectized type of business. So you may see, some quarters where things look really well, other quarters where it may not go as well, but overall for the year, they seem to be mostly profitable company. I mean, that's what the numbers are showing. So those are good things. I'd love to see the company communicate more, as I mentioned before. That would help you kind of understand, how things are, because these news articles, for example, from July of last year, that would have been 8 months ago. So we haven't essentially heard anything about the company in 8 months, or at least based on what my search would have found. If there's anything else that's there, it might have been maybe through other mediums, etc., that I'm not aware of. But these news articles I found were taken from the company's website, right? So they have a news section. So I gather that if there's anything else published, it would have been under that section. Now, based on the type of business, it is fairly easy to understand. I do think that there are some opportunities for the company to, continue to grow its model. We do see, based on the type of business and the client base that they have, you can expect that as those businesses grow, businesses like Starbucks, Mothers, etc., as they open new locations, that means, good business for JFP. So overall, good company. I think definitely some opportunities for growth in terms of the business. And as I said, I would just love to hear more about the company. But I can't think of anything that I would say would be areas for improvement. I would like to see, I guess, have some clarity around the receivables. So I do remember that there are some notes in the 9-month report. So I guess let's look at that briefly, right? So it says here that so all I'm going to be focused on here is the context for what would have already looked at, right? So it says here that the revenue would have increased, and we saw that already. The increase in the year-to-date and quarterly comparatives was due to completion of orders previously secured, as well as JFP's capability to streamline operational processes, right? We mentioned that before. That's just the nature of the business, right? So they would have completed orders. We're seeing that reflected. So quarterly sales costs increased. Understand that already. In terms of decline of other income, resulting in so this was due to losses from the investment currently held at GK Capital, which were as a result of the valuation of the equity investments held, as well as the sale of a portion of the equity investments to fund cash flow. I did mention that you may see them, liquidating that to generate cash. That's what they would have done here. So if they need to generate cash, so that 50 million that we saw in investments may be converted to cash depending on how cash comes in for them to be able to pay suppliers, pay staff, etc. Right? In the previous financial year, there was a sale of a motor vehicle of 6.7 million. Further details are there. And then admin expenses for the 9 months, we spoke about that, reflecting an increase of 48%. The increase was primarily due to staff costs as we continue to build our capacity to support the continued growth of our operations. Again, that was kind of clear based on the business model. It makes sense. Our overtime expenses increased significantly within the quarter in order to respond to both our challenge of acquiring additional skilled laborers as well as their need to complete projects on time. We also have continued quarterly incentives to our staff in the form of a productivity grant award. Again, this is something to understand about the company. So it seems like these costs aren't necessarily going to be every quarter, but depending on timelines and other things, you may see some quarters have higher expenses in terms of admin than others. And it's saying here, selling and distribution expenses increased primarily to in promotional and business development expenses, which have increased as they continue to grow and expand their brand regionally, right? That's normal there. Okay. And there's an improvement in the profit. We spoke about that. let's see here, in terms of their balance sheet now, they're saying that due to sale of a factory building as a part of the IPO process, plant and equipment value decrease. Okay, all right. So long-term investment held at GK saw an increase of 31% over the corresponding 9 months. I'd love to know what type of investments they have at GK. I don't think we'll get that information though, but that would be good to know. Receivables increased by 60%, moving from 95 million to 152. This was due to a number of projects being completed for which they're still awaiting payment. So cash and cash equivalents increased as a result of withdrawal. So they had to withdraw to pretty much top up their cash. And I did mention that was a concern of mine. And something that you'd have to watch, right? Inventory increased by 304%. We saw that, and management has taken a conscious decision to guard against shortages in inventory and also to maximize customer service and efficiency. So this is interesting, right? So if they're guarding against shortages, it's not necessarily that they have those earmarked for projects. They could just be stocking up just in case. So it's not a guarantee that they're going to be able to sell those in a timely manner. They just want to have it just in case, right? They don't want the customers to be ready for it and there's a shortfall. So inventory held is expected to decline in the next quarter as a majority of these orders will be completed by year-end. Okay, so we're going to see that inventory number likely go down. Total liabilities would have increased, largely due to outstanding balances on the lease and increase in our general payables. Again, that's normal, right? Retained earnings decreased from 206 million to 99.2 million, or 52%, due to dividends being declared at the end of December 2021. So that would have been before they listed. So they would have paid out a dividend at that point. Yep, I think everything else we would have gone through already. So, okay, yeah. So I hope that gave you some context as to some of the things I would have already said. I don't think there's anything else to add, really. I don't see any questions in the chat, so I think I'll wrap it up now. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know which companies you'd like me to review. If you haven't yet, please check out the Moneyline platform. Extremely useful in terms of getting information on the market and using it just to get market data daily. So thank you for watching, and I really hope to see you in the very next review.
Learning is the key to successful investing, and who doesn't want to invest in some way?
Here at L.E.A.R.N Invest, we focus on financial education, all with the aim of sharing our knowledge on personal finance, investing, and building wealth. We do this on the foundation of our faith in God.
If a more holistic approach is what you need, check out our Grow Faith-based financial coaching program.
Find out more about us at learngrowinvestclub.com
and follow us on all social media platforms